Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for inviting me to speak to you today. And thank you, Joe, for that introduction. It's been incredible working with you to see your energy, your enthusiasm, and indeed your expertise. You're doing a great job as leader of Cotswold Council, and you're a fierce champion for local government within our party. And it's great to be here in Harrogate and joining you in person again after a long stint of postponed conferences and Zoom speeches. I think nothing quite compares to speaking to a room full of people who share your passions and your beliefs. And the local government family is a very special one. People working tirelessly for their area, for their communities, putting local people first, coming together to help those in need, fostering a strong sense of community. And I think the pandemic, above all, showed local authorities at their very, very best, knowing where the most vulnerable people lived, working in partnership with their community, their voluntary sector, as well as the NHS, businesses and care providers. So I want to take this opportunity, the first I could in person, to thank you personally for how you responded to COVID. To thank everyone in local government, council officers and councillors, for the hard work and sacrifice that you showed during that very difficult time. It was absolutely right that we all clapped for our colleagues in the NHS, but you all deserve a long clap too. Thank you very much. And what you proved during the pandemic is actually the theme of my speech today. Strong local government and strong communities should be at the forefront of how we rebuild our country after COVID, to tackle challenges like the cost of living, like climate change, like dealing with people's amazing wish to welcome Ukrainian refugees. Central government fails people time and time again, while local government just gets on with doing the job. And I believe we will only deliver for people across our country if we rediscover a new strength in the respect for local democracy and local community. That sort of local community politics actually is what my party, the Liberal Democrats, has always been about. Local champions fighting for their area, taking no one for granted. Now, you may have noticed, but the Liberal Democrats have been winning quite a few elections recently, and our commitment to local communities and strong local champions has been at the heart of our new electoral success. From Richard Ford's brilliant victory in Tiverton-Honiton last week, to Helen Morgan's outstanding success in North Shropshire last December, to Sarah Green's surprise win in Chesham and Amersham that kicked off this new run of success for us just over a year ago. But this record run of parliamentary by-election victories, even better than we achieved in the early 1990s, ahead of the 1997 general election, might I add, that has been matched by our success in local elections, council by-elections, and a set of local elections in May where we made gains of more than 200 new councillors right across the country, more than any other party, from Scotland to Somerset. And I am so proud of that achievement. And in each campaign, we worked hard to get our finger on the pulse of what was on local people's minds, whether that was dangerously long ambulance waits in Shropshire, undemocratic developer-led planning reforms in Buckinghamshire, or the withdrawal of crucial support for farmers in Devon. Our key campaigns guided by conversations on the doorstep, not dictated by party HQ. And if we are to rebuild people's trust in politics, this community approach must be at the heart of that rebuilding. Fortunately for the Liberal Democrats, that approach is central to our whole philosophy. The belief that decisions are best made by those who will be affected by them. That when government is centralised and cumbersome, it's communities that suffer. We believe that local communities coming together are best placed to make decisions about their local area. And that placing more power in the hands of communities can make the biggest difference to people's lives. And we don't just talk about it, it's something we practice well. In local government, Liberal Democrats now represent over 7 million people across England, controlling budgets worth billions of pounds each year. Where we are in power, Liberal Democrat councils are trailblazers. And I'm proud of what so many Liberal Democrat councillors and councils are doing across the country. Whether that's down the road in York, where the Liberal Democrat-led authority plans to build 600 new carbon-neutral homes, part of an even more ambitious target to reach net zero for the city by 2030. Or in Sutton, where we are supporting small businesses by driving high street investment, which will breathe new life into the local economy. Or in St Albans and Three Rivers, where Liberal Democrat-run councils have the highest recycling rates in the country. These aren't one-size-fits-all policies handed down from Westminster. These are local solutions developed by local people. And these will be instrumental in tackling those local and national problems that we face in the future. So when it comes to the levelling up agenda, I have one key message for the government. You can't level up from Whitehall. The current crop of ministers, from the Prime Minister to the Secretary of State, seem to believe that you can govern by headlines in national papers. Well, perhaps we shouldn't be surprised when we are being governed by journalists turned politicians. It's just not good government. Liberal Democrats absolutely want to level up, but we should do that by placing local government as key players at the heart of those plans. And I think local government has a big role to play in our country's latest crisis, the cost of living emergency. People across our communities are facing the worst inflation for decades and the fastest drop in living standards since the 1950s. People can't afford to fill up their cars. Families can't afford to put food on the table. Pensions are seeing their savings destroyed in front of their eyes. However, instead of helping people faced with this storm, the main solution we've seen from the Conservatives in central government is to hike people's taxes. And they've given no serious role for local authorities at all. The government has just not failed to learn the lessons from the COVID crisis. That if you want to help the most vulnerable people in our society, that if you want to ensure that the solutions fit the varying needs of many different communities across our country, you must trust local government. One of the many reasons I'm excited to be here today is to learn from you, to hear about the solutions for the cost of living emergency that many councils are already developing. I know what some Liberal Democrat councils are already up to, learning, for example, from the experience of funding free school meals during the pandemic when the Conservative government wouldn't. Some of our councils are now engaging with schools about that very issue again. Some councils have made it clear they're going to make the cost of living emergency their number one priority. And so I want to pay special tribute to Eastbourne Council, the first local authority to declare a cost of living emergency with a particular action focus on food poverty in their community. And I have to say this, my wife is a local councillor in Kingston, and she holds a housing portfolio. We still control local council housing in Kingston. She started work for cost of living action with Kingston's housing department way before the Chancellor was forced into admitting there might be a problem. And I hope that local authorities, not just Liberal Democrats, will come together and share the best practice that is already going on there, so we can show that local government is a key part of the solution for the many millions of people who are really suffering at the moment. And so my second message to the government today is this: start working properly with local government, so together we can help people and communities across our country who are under stress. Now that starts by properly funding councils, by properly empowering councils. And by the way, multi-year budgets doesn't mean 2 years. Whitehall needs to recognise the extra costs that local authorities have been struggling with. The extra costs of COVID, which you were never helped with, although they'd promised to help you. And now the extra costs of the cost of living crisis, where the government is letting you take the pain, and that means the people that you're trying to represent taking the pain. We must empower councils so they can do what councils do best, helping communities, particularly the most vulnerable. And government should stop dictating to councils, not least on matters like remote working and working from home. Why are they telling councils how they can work when you can get efficiencies by experimenting with remote working? Why are they telling people that they have to go to work and spend extra money getting to work and in childcare when people are faced with a cost of living crisis? When the whole country is faced with a workforce crisis, why are ministers making new flexible working more difficult? And here's one new idea where central government could work with local government on the cost of living. As well as funding councils properly, the government could set up an urgent new community fund. We could ask councils to develop new initiatives for tackling the cost of living crisis in their communities, new ideas that could fire up communities, social entrepreneurs and local partnerships to address the cost of living crisis so many families and pensioners are facing. Initiatives that help disabled people in our communities, that help people with mental health problems, that work with schools and primary healthcare professionals, that work with businesses in the voluntary sector. New government funds for community-led projects, not a headline for number 10, but good local government. And this community-led approach is especially needed when it comes to helping people who need better support for their health and their care. My argument when I've been making the case for more support for social care and for family carers is this: caring for people's health does not stop at the hospital exit or the GP's surgery door. Family carers and social care workers do a remarkable job, often in very difficult circumstances, and they are often key to people's health and well-being. Carers and social care deserves far more support, but I'm afraid the Conservative government's new social care plans are taking them for granted yet again. More than 1.5 million people are missing out on the care they desperately need. And to pretend you can fix this with no new funding, without addressing the huge shortage of staff, frankly, is just insulting people's intelligence. Boris Johnson has broken promise after promise when it comes to social care. He's hitting people with an unfair tax rise while failing to protect people from losing their homes. And let's not forget that all these failings have a very real human cost. Millions of people are missing out on the care they need, and thousands more are facing exorbitant costs. People are stranded in hospital, unable to leave because the follow-up care they need to go home simply isn't there. And this all puts an extra strain on the NHS, which can't afford it. They just got the system badly wrong. And that puts extra strain and pressure on families and friends looking after their loved ones. And it's not surprising that the mental health of family carers is twice as poor as for the average population. If you want to tackle the healthcare problems, you've got to invest in social care, and you've got to work with local authorities to make sure that happens. This government is so wasteful. They waste so much money. Now, Michael Gove made a bit of a habit of this when he was Secretary of State for Education. Free schools, certainly in my constituency, and I've seen the Public Accounts Committee report have wasted so much money. They were supposed to be parent-led, but they ended up being Quango-led, with decisions not involving local authorities at all. And they wasted hundreds of millions of pounds, and they did not allow local authorities to be involved in place planning. It was a huge centralization of education, and it was wrong. It needs to be reformed. Now, the schools bill doesn't go anywhere near what we need for our education. Now, of course, it does say that local authorities could now run and set up multiple academy trusts. That reminds me of local education authorities. Now, another area where we can't afford to keep overlooking local government is with energy efficiency, made even more urgent by the cost of living emergency. Up and down the country, people are struggling with skyrocketing heating bills. And these are expected to soar even further in October when the energy price cap rises yet again. Far too many families are living in fuel poverty. They face impossible decisions between eating and heating. And I'm afraid those in Whitehall seem to be turning a blind eye. One of the solutions that Liberal Democrats have campaigned for many years is a comprehensive energy efficiency program. Upgrading poorly insulated homes across our country. It would be a win-win. Bills cut, fuel poverty tackled, and emissions reduced all at the same time. It's part of why we've been calling for a proper windfall tax on the super profits of oil and gas companies since last October. We called for a Robin Hood tax that would raise an estimated £10 billion, and 500 million of that would be spent on upgrading poorly insulated homes, with fully funded grants for those in fuel poverty and on low incomes. And that's part of our plan for a 10-year program to upgrade homes' energy efficiency, delivered in partnership with, yes, local SMEs, but also with local authorities. Conservatives in national government, I'm afraid, are totally failing to tackle this insulation challenge, as the Climate Change Committee have confirmed once again today. They've scrapped the Green Homes Grant, a program that was a disappointment from start to finish, short-termist, poorly thought out, and chronically mismanaged. And now the Conservatives have no serious insulation policy at all. This is a disaster for climate, but it's also a disaster for fuel poverty and for those people who are suffering with high energy bills, and we must challenge them on that. And just as we need to get more serious about climate action, we can't forget about action for our national environment too, our natural environment, and that involves local action above all. The pandemic showed us the importance of local green spaces. Many of us found a new appreciation for nearby parks, woodlands, and rivers throughout those long months of the lockdown. So often, these spaces are actually cornerstones of local communities. They are deeply, deeply valued, and people care about them. They want to see them protected and preserved. And we know that local communities are the best place to make sure that happens. But the Tories insist on tying their communities' hands behind their backs. Take the sewage scandal. For far too long, water companies have been allowed to dump sewage into our beautiful rivers, lakes, and seas. Not just once or twice. They've done it more than 750,000 times across England in the last 2 years alone. That means sewage being dumped more than 1,000 times every day. It's a shocking state of affairs. And our precious natural environment is being destroyed as a result. We're now seeing blue-green algae bloom in some of our lakes because of pollution. Take Lake Windermere, England's largest lake. It's full of it. Other waterways are being poisoned. Dog walkers now fear the sight of their beloved pet jumping into the stream. And it impacts humans too. Just ask Professor Chris Whitty. He warned us earlier this week that river sewage is becoming a serious concern for public health. We need action, and we need it now. The Democrats have been long calling for tougher action on water companies. whether that's our proposed sewage tax on their profits to help fund the cleanup, or a ban on bonuses for water company bosses until these sewage dumps stop. I'm afraid government ministers still refusing to lift a finger. They have voted time after time to let water companies keep on pumping their filthy sewage straight into our rivers. So as this scandal rages on, we have to go further. It's why Liberal Democrats are now calling for local authorities to have the power to fine water companies when they pollute our waterways. And councils should also be given the powers and resources to monitor water companies to check whether they are breaking even the existing laws on water pollution. This monitoring role is currently carried out by the water companies themselves, overseen by an environment agency that has no budget or people to do that job properly. These powerful water companies have to be held to account on behalf of every local community in our country. And because the Conservatives in Westminster refuse to act, Liberal Democrats believe it's time councils were empowered instead. Now, I guess you might say, how can we expect the Conservatives to hold water companies to account when the Prime Minister won't allow himself to be held to account? Partygate, tax rises, broken manifesto, promises time and again. Boris Johnson has deceived the British people on an industrial scale. He has taken them for granted for far too long. If 148 Tory MPs are to believe, he's lost the confidence of his own party. I think he's lost the confidence of the country too. What people need now is real leadership and a government that listens to them and has their best interests at heart. I'm afraid we have a Prime Minister that's only interested in saving his own skin. Every day that Johnson stays in office is another day the government is distracted from the tasks at hand. I know it, you know it, and I think the voters know it too. Over the past few months, I've heard the same thing on the doorstep time and again. People don't trust the Prime Minister, and they just want him gone. Now, clearly he's an electoral liability, just as much as he is an economic liability, proven at the polls last week. But until the next election, the only people who can show Boris Johnson the door are his own party. So my message to Conservative ministers and Conservative councillors, if you're in the room today, is this: show Johnson the door before the electorate does it for you. So my final comments are this: things just aren't working at the moment. Under Johnson, we're seeing a cost of living crisis, a health and social care crisis, and a travel crisis all at the same time. People feel powerless and frustrated with the direction our country is taking. And this Conservative government keeps ignoring them, no matter how much people are struggling. But it doesn't have to be like this. Liberal Democrats will fight for a fair deal for people. A fair deal that says if you play your bit, if you play by the rules, you'll get the opportunity to get on in life and succeed. A fair deal that requires a government that steps in where it's needed and steps back where it should. A fair deal that trusts local government and local communities to do what they can do best. A fair deal that puts power in people's hands and holds the already powerful to account. A fairer, better way of life is possible, and I know local government can and should play a key part in that. Thank you very much.